So I've just seen The Substance, directed by Coralie Fargeat. I believe that's how you pronounce her name. French, so who knows. Starring Demi Moore and Margaret Qualley. This is an insane, disgusting, fun, amazing horror movie. I had so much fun watching this. So in this film, we follow Elizabeth Sparkle, played by Demi Moore, who was once a beloved television superstar, has now unfortunately been considered an aging 50-year-old has-been. She gets fired from her job, people on the street are cold to her as if she doesn't even exist. Society is basically treating her a lot differently than how they treated her when she was younger, considered more attractive. However, this all changes when a mysterious organization offers her a substance that guarantees an enhanced, better version of yourself. And she takes it. And from that point on, we have a movie that has not a moment of boredom. I was entertained and locked in from beginning to end. The directing in this movie is so stylized, it feels like you're on a roller coaster, but it's not over stylized like Elvis where you want to vomit from what you're looking at. The technical aspects of this film just work so well together to help capture this chaotic but structured momentum. You get this upbeat, intense score throughout, mix that in with the way that this movie is edited, and plus obviously how it's written, and you get this solidly paced insanity. But let me reiterate, it is insane, but it never gets too insane too quickly. It never loses you. The movie knows when to breathe, when to get crazier, and how crazier it needs to get. And when I say crazier, I'm of course referring to the horror elements of the movie, specifically the body horror. This movie has some of the best practical effects I've seen in years. It's so impressive. I don't know what they did or how they did it. It's disgusting. It's revolting at times to look at. So, props to the team. Your jaw will drop. Like, I'm not being hyperbolic. There are moments and montages and sequences where you're just like, what the fuck am I looking at? And when I say body horror, it's not in terms of like the Saw franchise or those Terrifier movies where you're basically watching like juvenile torture porn. This is more in line with your Cronenbergs, John Carpenter's The Thing. I even saw a little bit of Henenlotter in this. Like, there's a few moments where I thought of Basket Case. Which I love Basket Case, so that is a compliment. Very creative use of body horror. Not even just in the body horror itself, but the movie as a whole is very bold. Which I'm not surprised, because the director of this film, her last film, Revenge, that was her feature debut. Which is just an insane feature debut. That movie is also good and crazy, but for different reasons. Coralie Fargeat, again, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, but I am seated for the rest of your career. Her first two movies, especially this one, The Substance, have really no weak parts at all. They're either good or great. Like the acting is phenomenal from both leads, Demi Moore and Margaret Qualley. They have probably some of my favorite performances of the year so far. And the way that it's shot, the cinematography is so expressive. You have these long hallway Kubrick-esque shots, these establishing shots, and you mix that in with these absurdly tight close-ups, as if you're watching a Safdie Brothers movie. Now, this movie did win Best Screenplay at Cannes. So to wrap up this review, let's go ahead and talk about the non-subtle satirical writing and why it works. This movie is an absurdist satirical reflection on society and how we value people based on beauty standards. It touches on body dysmorphia, self-image, self-hatred, due to all the societal pressures or standards we get when we turn on the TV or nowadays turn on our phones and see what does everybody consider hot or attractive. The craziest part is, and this is due to the fact of the fantastic directing, this movie is able to balance so much at once. The grotesque body horror, the surprisingly amount of funny moments. At times, this movie is borderline a black comedy. And the editing, the score, the pacing, the writing, it all makes the tone feel like you're on this batshit insane but fun roller coaster. However, that being said, even though the tone of this movie doesn't feel necessarily dire, the theme, the purpose, the message, it's so fucking depressing. There are parts where I'm just in the middle of watching this movie, having a great time. I'm just like shocked, like, oh my god, I can't believe they're showing this. And then I'll just take one step back, just a little, just let everything sink in, let all the non-subtle dialogue sink in, all the non-subtle symbolic representation of self-harm sink in, messages about body dysmorphia and self-hatred and beauty standards and how we value people on a day-to-day basis based on how they look. That shit just, that's so depressing. A lot of self-hatred comes from beauty standards, and it's so common. That shit's fucking bleak. You take away all the absurd moments in this movie, and this character does so many things that I feel like resonate with so many people. Again, no spoilers, but the promotional poster, that is one of the most depressing scenes in the movie. The tone of this movie isn't bleak. We're not watching funny games. This is still, again, like I said, a fun, crazy roller coaster that I would recommend you watch with a crowd. But yes, the message of this movie is bleak. It is a mirror. It is showing us, look how ridiculous and fucked up and dangerous beauty standards are and what they could do to someone's psyche. And it's so good because it's not pretentious. It's not trying to be smarter than it is. It is constantly bashing over the head like, this is what this movie's about. And it plays it in such a bizarre, insane, creative, fun way. This movie's a breath of fresh air. With all that being said, I am giving The Substance an 8 out of 10. I would highly recommend you watch this movie. And unless we get some incredible bangers in the next 3 months, this is definitely going to be in my top 10 of 2024 list. Alright, so for the similar recommendation, I am going to be going with Starry Eyes, directed by Kevin Kolsch and Dennis Weidmeyer. Starring Alex Esso as Sarah. So this movie follows a young woman who wants to become a famous actress in LA. She's working a 9-to-5 job at this shitty, almost Hooters-like restaurant. It's pretty hard for her. She's constantly going to these auditions and she's not getting the part until she goes to one specific audition, and from that point she kind of delves into the evil, sinister world of Hollywood. And when I say evil, I'm not being hyperbolic. This is a horror movie. It is not just a conspiracy, abuse of power, grooming type of Hollywood thing. No, there's some paranormal evil shit. Some dark, disturbing moments throughout, and although used sparingly, there are moments of very graphic violence and body horror. All around tone, it feels a lot darker than The Substance, but they follow similar characters and themes in relation to women and Hollywood and becoming famous and how people treat you. It's got a great score, but I would say the best part about this movie is the acting. If you're a fan of the acting in the movie Possession, you're gonna love Starry Eyes. Alex Esso just puts on such a crazy, full of range, phenomenal performance. It just stays with you, and she is the best part of the movie. Fantastic, severely underrated horror movie. This is like every conspiracy theorist's wet dream, where they think Hollywood is just a bunch of child-eating predators who worship the devil. That's basically this movie. Now for The Substance, there are actually so many movies I want to recommend, but I don't want to postpone this video longer than it already is. So I'm just going to recommend one more as a bonus. And that bonus recommendation is going to be The Fly, directed by David Cronenberg, 1986. In The Fly, we follow a scientist named Seth, played by Jeff Goldblum, as he undergoes a science experiment that goes completely wrong. At first, nothing seems out of place, but as the movie unfolds, you find out everything is out of place. Without going into detail on the actual science experiment itself, it involves a housefly, and because of that housefly, throughout the movie, he is slowly morphing into a literal fly. When it comes to the best body horror movie ever made, I would probably agree with the consensus that The Thing by John Carpenter, that's probably the best body horror movie of all time. However, when it comes to specifically practical effects in body horror, I would say The Fly is the most viscerally disgusting, memorable movie I've ever seen. Practical effects in this movie are insane. I don't know how they did that shit. As a whole, I enjoyed the movie. I enjoyed the pacing, the story. Jeff Goldblum killed it in terms of being the main lead. But what stays with you is the practical effects and the body horror in this movie. It's so timeless. If your favorite part of The Substance was the last 30 minutes, then this is the perfect similar recommendation. You have to watch The Fly. Alright guys, that does it for my video. Thank you to everybody who watched. Also real quick, I have seen The Wild Robot, Megapolis, and unfortunately Joker 2, so expect a movie roundup of all three of those movies sometime this week, hopefully in the next few days. And since we are getting into October, my favorite month of the year, we're definitely gonna shift a little bit into more horror. I want to do like a top 5 best horror movies so far of 2024. Maybe an underrated recommendation list. I'm not sure, but expect more horror themed content for the next month or this month by the time this is out. But other than that, thank you to everybody who watched again, and I will see you at the next one.